Hello, welcome back. I'm Sam and this is SC Classics. Hello, welcome back. This video is long overdue. It's on the Mark 1 Escort, YB powered Mark 1. As you see, some of the footage I've been recording for months. I've not put a video up on it, so some of it's old footage, but it's all progress on this car. Anyway, as you can see, we've got power lead in, made up the earth cable. That's going to be, battery box is going to be going here. Obviously, there's our live, made up a nice stout earth cable, and bolt to the floor, there to the battery, and then that runs all the way through the car. So I didn't film any of this. I wasn't going to film any of it. I was just going to carry on with it because this car needs to be done fast now. But I figured I might as well show you what I'm up to. Power lead goes through under the rear seat replacement, whatever you want to call it, through the rear bulkhead and into the back. It's I've got some cable tie saddles all the way down the transmission tunnel. Fitted a switch panel because this had, as you can see, various switches and God knows what in the dashboard. So just want to neaten it up, get it all in one place. Bought a Rally Design switch panel. It is actually silver, it's still got the protective film on it. We've got our kill switch, we've got our push button start. That's sort of where I'm up to so far. It's going to have, I'm going to try and get most of the cluster working, like the tack, volt gauge and stuff like that, the original stuff. But I want a, excuse me, I want to get the boost gauge, because obviously the original clocks won't have a boost gauge. And I want to put an aftermarket oil pressure gauge in there because I'm not really, I don't really have any faith in the 50-year-old original oil pressure gauge, and you really want to keep an eye on the oil pressure when you're running 300 brake YB engine. The last thing you want to do is oil pressure to fall off and the gauge not be all that reliable. See that? Wedding ring, way. So yeah, it's going to get a boost gauge in there, a capillary oil pressure gauge, so we can keep an eye on boost, keep an eye on oil pressure, and then it's going to be switches for the lift pump for the swirl pump, swirl pot, a headlight switch is going in here because it's been hacked out for the 6-dial dash. It should go in the lower dash, but I figured we're putting switches in anyway. So headlight switch, lift pump, push button for the squirties, windscreen squirties. What else was going in there? What else? Oh, windscreen wipers that are going to toggle switch in here. We just want to basically try and get all the switches in one place so it's not all over the car looking messy. So just neaten things up. What else? I haven't really got on with much else. I've got a swirl pot for it now. I've got a lift pump. I just need to work out where I am going to put it all in the boot. So we've got our big, what I've been doing actually is this is the dashboard loom, which I'm now trying to tidy up because we've got stuff like this. Obviously I'm going to have to change this original connector for the toggle switch. The headlight switch, which is over here, is going to have to be cut and extended and go into the center console. There's all kinds of bits and pieces to be done with this, but first thing I want to do, you notice that it's all curled up and tight here, and that's because this section's been done in black insulation tape, which I think I've probably mentioned in another video before when I've been doing wiring looms. Is no good really for wiring looms. You see this has still got some flex to it. That's because this is the original non-adhesive vinyl loom tape, whereas this is solid, and that's because the adhesive sticks all the wires together and it just can't move. So what I'm going to do is get rid of this because it shouldn't be bent here anyway. This should be pretty straight across here. Get rid of all this black insulation tape and I'll redo it in grey non-adhesive loom tape, just to neaten it up and give it that bit of flex. There's all kinds of, lots of burr wires, and so yeah, just tidy it all up, run some new wires to where they need to be, just make it better. But yeah, back to the fuel system. I'm jumping around a bit here, ignore this Pinto head. This is for customer's engine I've got to build, 2-litre Pinto for a Mark III Cortina. We've got our Bosch 4.4 big bad boy fuel pump. So that's going to be our main feed to the engine. We've also got a Bosch Motorcraft fuel filter. I think that's actually a 2.8 Capri type. With some AM fittings on it. We've got a Facet fuel pump. This is going to feed the swirl pot. And then we've got all kinds of fittings and stuff, just what I had lying around in the drawer. That's some of his original stuff. So, somewhere along, oh, I have got a swirl pot. 2, this is a Torx swirl pot. So, this has got to go in the boot somewhere. It's had some AM lines put in it, AM fittings, because these were 10mm barbed. So, get some AM lines for it. What else? First job I'm tackling is going to be rerouting the headlight switch, which would have been over this side on the driver's side, just under the clocks, indicator stalk over this side. So what I want to do is put it in the switch panel in the centre there. Now I know this is the wiper switch. This would have sat in the switch panel originally, the original plastic one. So I know if I route this wire in across here, make it a little bit longer, leave it longer, I can mount the switches in the switch panel. So it's just a case of extending these 3 wires. Now what I don't like doing is soldering, because believe it or not, I'm actually a HGV technician, and when we was adding all the extras to the new trucks, we never soldered anything. And I was always a big believer in solder. And I was taught at the DAF training college that you never solder on trucks, because of the solder becomes brittle and eventually breaks with vibrations and stuff. Something I've never experienced, but I wouldn't like to experience it on a car once you've all taped all the loom up and stuff like that. And I'm sure people will tell you otherwise, but for me, that's what I like to do. So I'm using these little open barrel crimp terminals to splice into the put new wiring into the old wiring. The other thing as well is when you're soldering the old cable, sometimes it just doesn't want to take to it. Now, maybe it's me soldering iron or something I'm doing wrong, but sometimes you find the solder just doesn't want to stick to the old cables. So I prefer to use these, nice and neat, just open barrel, copper splice, copper crimps, and then I've got these Blue Point, you can see, different jaws. We've got all different jaws for insulated, non-insulated, quick change. So these are quite handy. So all I'll do is just splice them in, put some heat shrink over it. Then I'm going to have to remove all this this is the original loom tape. I have to remove that, and then I can tape it in there nice and neat. Like I said, I'm going to leave this long, I'm going to leave these unterminated until I decide the exact length. It's only going to be 3 spade terminals for on these toggle switches. So like I say, as long as they take together, leave them long, I can cut them back and terminate them wherever I want. So I'm not going to show you every wire that I'm putting in, but I just want to show you the technique and what I use. I'm not saying it's the right way to do it. Everyone's got their own way. I'm sure some electronics wiring specialist will jump on and tell me what I'm doing is wrong, but it works, so I'm going to do it. And there we have it. So the headlight loom that would have come out here now comes out here. Just put some cable ties in for the time being, just temporary, just hold it in place so we know where everything goes. Obviously they'll all get cut off, this will all get cut off, it'll get tied into the original loom and taped up. Once I'm happy, I've got all my wires run and everything is where it needs to be, then I'll retape all the full loom in, or at least the dashboard loom with the grey loom tape. I might need to order some more actually, because although it looks like a lot, it doesn't go very far. You'd be surprised how quick that'll run out. And I may have to, well, I'm pretty sure I'll have to retape the engine bay loom as well. So let's get some of that ordered, but that's that one out of the way. As I said, leave it quite long. We can cut it back and terminate it when I've decided where the switches are going in the switch panel. Next one, is the wiper switch. Again, just going to cut it, extend these wires to the same length as these, because these will be situated roughly the same place in the switch panel. So it's the next day, and I'm carrying on with the Mark 1 dashboard loom. Now this is the original loom for the ignition switch, so this would have had your ignition cap, which goes on the back of your ignition barrel. So it was wired up, the original plug plugged in, and then come over to the driver's side to a kill switch, and then these two were on a push button starter. So I'm going to rewire this so it's into the crosshair again, into the center console, into the switch panel, sorry, and I've just started pulling some of the tape off. And that is an ignition live going into the start button, which was just wrapped with some insulation tape around it. So I'm not knocking whoever did this, it's just something I wanted to show you what I'm finding. So I'm sure there'll be more underneath here as well. So again, these will all be crimped in now and heat shrink rather than twisted with some insulation tape. I think it'll last a little bit longer. And the funny thing is, it actually worked. You know, in a previous video I've shown you cranking it over and starting. It actually worked, but for how long, that's a different question. Something else I've just spotted, and I overlooked it last night because I actually was working on this headlight loom. So this red is your power, and then you've got your dipped and side beam, which will be the blue and the white. Ignore the colours, it's just the wires, the colours that I've got. Anyway, so you follow it along. These are where I put the barrel connectors in and crimp them in, heat shrink them. And if you follow this red along, you get to this. I don't know how I missed this last night, but if you look, this red wire that I've spliced into is literally hanging on like one piece of copper. So yeah, that wouldn't have lasted long. And also the wire that it joins into the main power lead from the ignition switch, as you can see, has been open to the elements for a while because it's starting to go, I believe, starting to go green, or is that grease? I'm not sure. But that's going to be have to addressed, because any day now that last strand of copper is going to overheat when he puts the lights on and break. So good thing I had a dig around, because that wouldn't have lasted long. I would have taped all that up, and before you know it, his headlights would have stopped working. So I don't actually want to uncover all this just yet. I want to keep this all together just to keep the loom intact. But obviously with this repair, I need to pull some of this back to get to it properly. And then when I started peeling it back, I also noticed red and white wire just tucked away in there, which would have been the original temperature gauge wire. I'm not sure why it's been trimmed back to there. That should go off to red and white there. That's the bulkhead plug. Plugs into the engine bay harness. I'm not sure where the red and white's been shot back. Maybe in there somewhere. And as you can see, would have gone after the clocks. So yeah, I'm not sure why that's been cut back. I'll do some investigation into that. But yeah, I'm going to peel this, put some cable ties around these branches of the loom just to keep it all intact, and a couple of loose ones along here just to keep it all intact. Do me repairs, add me extra wires, tape it all back up again. So I'm really geeky and stupid, but I actually love unbinding these original wiring looms. When I say original, this section's original, it's never been on tape before, but you get to see where they banded this up, you know, to keep it all together, which is ideal. Knowing these little techniques, what Ford used, I can use them techniques when I'm doing like a concourse build, try and make it look authentic. And another thing is, I know this piece of wire, or all these wires have never been seen for 50 years. I'm the first person to see these since this loom was built. Probably, well, it wouldn't have been Halewood, would it? Because it's an Australian car, but providing this is the original loom for the car. Yeah, very geeky. And another broken wire found would have been green and black is one of the indicators. So you got green and black and white next to each other. One's left indicator, one's right. I can never remember which side is which. Where are we? Yeah, green and black. So we would have had no right indicator, or at least no right indicator on the dashboard, on the cluster. Whether that would stop the indicator working full stop, I'm not sure. I probably would actually, because it would break the circuit. But yeah, right hand indicator wire, broken, cut, clean cut by the looks of it. Must have been caught on something. So there's something else to repair. But now we can actually, what I've done, untaped it all, detaped it. The only bit left is on this rear harness over here, but for the time being I don't need to touch that. I need to concentrate on this dashboard area over here. We've got this, obviously the cut temperature wire. We've got cut right indicator. We've also got this broken main live. In fact, that's now, the single strand is now broke, but I've been manipulating the loom to get the tape off. So that needs repairing, that needs splicing back in. As you can see, I've just put lots of little temporary cable ties in on the branches so they don't lose their spot on the loom. Even though it's a modified loom, I still want some things to be original. That's the plug for, if I'm not mistaken, the wiper motor. Yeah, wiper motor. Yeah, we're getting somewhere now. If somewhere is a mess, then we're definitely getting there. No, this also as well, this little wire here that's bridged over, that is because this car was originally a 2-dial dash. It wouldn't run a tack, wouldn't have run a 6-dial tack. So what you do with this wire now is you unplug this. Can't do it one-handed, don't want to break it. But that'll be a male and a female bullet connector. And then on the back of the clocks, hopefully it's got it, there's a loop wire. Sadly it's missing. Bugger. So usually on the back of the tack here, there's a loop wire that runs through there, and it has male female. So what you do is you unplug this. The dashboard harness is the same whether it's got a 2-dial or a 6-dial. It just means this ignition live here, this is the feed to the coil, is connected. If it's a 6-dial, that is running to this loop wire, connect to either side. So the ignition live for your coil runs through the tack, and you get your signal for your tack. As you can see, this harness has had a bit of work as well. It's going to be your next. Yeah, one thing at a time, eh? Let's concentrate on the loom, the dashboard harness. Put them back over here, and we'll. I might even try and source another dashboard loom for the 6-dial dash and the loop wire for the tack. I was speaking to Alex Darcy, and he sent me over a little link on how to wire in wasted spark through the original tack if we want to go down that route. It is an option, or whether we put an aftermarket tack in, I'm not sure. I've not got to that point yet. But anyway, I'm going to carry on, start doing some of these repairs, splicing these back in. These are quite simple actually. That's just going to be one of these little foot connectors and some heat shrink. This one's going to be a bit more involved because it's spliced into this big thick main live. So, and again, need to work out why this has been cut out. Anyway, let's get on with it. If you're enjoying this geeky content and learning bits and pieces about Mark 1 Escorts and want to see more, now would be a good time to hit that subscribe button. It costs you nothing, and you get to learn all these geeky little tips about Mark 1, Mark 2 Escorts, you know, delving into the wiring, giving away little tips and techniques. You might use them, you might not. It's up to you. But anyway, yeah, hit that subscribe, it costs you nothing. And we found another boo-boo. So we've got 2 earths twisted together here, and then this third one with a spade connector on it. Can't remember where this went to. This was twisted with a bit of heat shrink on it. But then when I've done continuity across these two, across this, it's showing the earth for the clocks, and then this earth that clamps to the A-post on the driver's side. So these two need to be spliced together. This is going to earth the clocks, I'm not quite sure where this was going off to. Just a little female spade. Not quite sure, but either way, we're going to lose it. We're going to put a proper connector on them so they're not just looped up to each other. And that's another piece out of the way. And then I'm going to track down the temperature wire and see where it's cut off and reattach it. The plot thickens, so ignore that wiring over there. So in order to sort out the temperature wire, I had to remove all the tape off the last section of rear harness. So basically now the full harness, full dashboard harness is untaped, so I could access this one. But in removing the tape I then found this one, which blue is the alternator wire. So you have your big thick red to the alternator and you have your blue. Now on this car the blue wire was wired to the starter motor, to the solenoid on the starter, because what it needs is a live to switch the alternator on and it can start charging. So effectively it will do the same job, but in doing that you'd also then lose the I'm pretty sure the volt gauge on the dashboard doesn't work. Is this? I might be wrong. I'd have to dig into that, trace some wires, but definitely your battery light won't work on the dashboard with this disconnected. So then obviously I found this further down, so that has been chopped. I'm going to get a continuity on it, make sure it is the battery light, and reinstate it, so then the battery light will work on the dash and the alternator will be triggered as it should have been from the factory. Reinstate the temperature wire to the clocks, which is simple enough. And I also found an earth wire, which goes off in this harness to the backlights. This is your rear harness, brown wire, I think, from memory, is just an earth. But it also means that there's no earth for the backlights, so they wouldn't have worked. So let's reinstate this. I think that's just missing, is it just missing an eyelet? No, I'm not actually sure on that. Maybe that should have spliced into that earth. I think that should run through and splice into that other earth, so it'll earth the backlights, because I don't remember there being earths on both sides of the A-pillars on a mountain Escort. It's usually only on the driver's side from memory. Could be wrong. But either way, it needs to be earthed, whether it connects into the harness with that other earth, which is over here, or just on its own earth. On the passenger A-post, the backlights definitely need an earth. So I'll have to reinstate that one too. So we're getting there. Don't think there's any more chopped wires. So there's just these three, which is going to hook up with obviously this one, this one. This one's just going to go to earth. And then I've just got to sort out this this live over here, which is broke away, and then we can get on with adding the modifications, i.e. splicing in the Cosworth engine harness. I bought a little aftermarket fuse box, which will power the electric pump for the window washers, the little facet lift pump. What else was there? There's something else. But yeah, basically I'm putting a little fuse box in, and that's going to power up all the accessories, just to make it a bit safer, so it's not just relying on the original fuses. Another issue I've got as well is, as you can see, these are the plugs for the original fuse box. So the original fuse box actually bolts to the bulkhead from the engine bay side. Now obviously with the engine in the way, we can't do that. So this original fuse box will now be in the car, which isn't a big problem. The only issue I've got is there's about 6 wires in the engine bay on the engine harness which plug into the front of the fuse box, which now needs to be run into the car, into the cabin, to plug into the front of the fuse box. So I'll have to put some sort of bulkhead fitting in, or I'm not sure. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But yeah, we're moving the fuse box into the car just to simplify things a little bit. I think the hole in the bulkhead for the original fuse box is actually welded up. So anyway, let's start splicing these wires back in and move forward with this harness. So investigating, I've done the temperature wire, that's spliced in, that's all good. Investigating this blue wire, which appears to be chopped off further down the loom here. Traced it back to the clocks, and obviously the pins you see here, and then traced it into the harness. And what I've done was I went to the battery light, which is down here. You're looking at clocks, the red one down on the bottom there. So the obvious thing to do would be check for continuity, nothing. So I then started checking obviously other terminals. These are just dashboard illumination, that's your indicator, dashboard illumination, and then temperature and fuel gauge, which is another issue I found. But when I come to this bulb here is the illumination for the tack. Hello. So the earth, the illumination for the tack wouldn't work. The yellow and black is live. So this one should be earth. It's actually the signal wire to switch on the alternator. So I believe this harness has been spliced about just a little. So I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to reconnect that wire, reinstate that wire to the bulkhead plug, and then source another dashboard harness, because something else I noticed as well, there's our red and white again, our temperature gauge. It's the fuel gauge. But I also know that blue and black is fuel gauge, which is not going to work anyway. It's irrelevant because we've got an alloy tank in the back with no fuel gauge. So that one should be there and that one should be there. But as you can see, there's another post here. These are both earths. So a good way to check a sensor on an engine is to check to see if it's a sensor or the gauge or wiring, is put the other end of this wire to earth and your fuel gauge or your temperature gauge will go to full. That's because this side is live, that side's earth, but these have got no lives, so temperature wouldn't work, fuel wouldn't work, which again, fuel is irrelevant, it's not going to have a fuel gauge anyway. But the battery light wouldn't work because that is now earth in the, it's not even going to earth it because that's going to be effectively alive, I would have thought. No? That would have been perhaps a dead wire. Anyway, I'm going to have to source another 6-dial dash loom, get rid of this nicest way possible, monstrosity. Your voltage reg as well, got a wire missing off it. So, you source one of these fast, and hopefully I can get a loop for the tack as well, so we can try and reinstate the factory tack. Onwards and upwards, but for the time being I'm going to reinstate this back to here, and that job's ticked off. Then extend this and put a little eyelet on this, and that can just earth to the A-post. And that's all that end complete. The only thing left to do is sort out this earth wire. Main live wire, sorry. So that is the alternator wire reinstated, spliced, well not spliced in, connected back in, heat shrink. Something else I spotted is some heat shrink. Basically when I'm going through the loom I'm spotting these bits of heat shrink. As a rule of thumb, whenever there's heat shrink on it, there's usually, I think we can just squeeze it off, this hiding underneath. Twisted wire and some heat shrink to keep it in place. Now this is only a grey and yellow is illumination for clocks and switchgear and whatnot, but still it still needs a proper connector on there. So basically I'm going to go through this loom, and anywhere where I see any of these bits of heat shrink I'm going to be removing it and checking it. There's some over here, on there, there's some there, some there. So I think there's not many more bits of heat shrink actually. Yeah, it's just these. Obviously this repair I've just shown you, I need to sort out, and there's a few bits of heat shrink on this indicator relay loom which need checking out. Yeah, I think that was one. You know, it's quite, yeah, you can actually see the wire twists in it. Yeah, so I'll address them, and then I think over, oh no, I forgot about one. this big main live, which I keep forgetting about. So I'll get all these heat shrinks sorted out, and then I'll move on to this big main live, and that is the original standard dashboard harness repaired. And then it's a case of adding all the accessories to it. You know, the lift pump, electric washer pump, I can't remember what else off the top of my head, but yeah. So that's where we're at. Get this one trim back, put a terminal on there, not a terminal, a butt connector, crimp it, get some heat shrink on it, make it right. So I'm back to it. Tuesday morning, it's day after the bank holiday weekend. Excuse me a minute, just throw something in the bin. And I had a little epiphany of the weekend. I was thinking about this Mark 1 loom, and remember how I said this was an earth wire? Well, it's not, because Mark 1 Escorts, as you know, earth through the bodies. So they bolt to the back panel and it causes them to earth. So they don't actually need an earth wire. And so this brown wire, the reason it's cut off is this is reverse lights. So I'm going to show you this. It's got no earth lights. It's got no reverse lights, sorry. So that wire is redundant. I'm not going to show you what's on the ramp above me, because that's for the next video and it's rather special. I think you'll like it. But yes, this wire is now redundant. What I'm going to do is some heat shrink on it so it can't touch anything, tie it back into the loom, and it's not needed. There we go. So that would normally run knee seat cross member across to the gearbox tunnel, poke through the gearbox tunnel, single wire, little pin on the side of the gearbox. That's all it is. So that is redundant. It's not needed. We won't be using it. And the other thing, it probably won't work because it's running a Mazda gearbox. So even if we had reverse lights on the back, I'm not sure how we'd wire them in. So that's redundant. So I won't be using that. So once that's taped up out the way, we've got this nasty power line here to sort out. Sure, I'm going to deal with that yet. Well, that's my next job. I'm going to get that done, then can move forward. So I made an executive decision. I think this is the bulkhead connector. So this will go from the engine, from the cabin through to the engine bay. The engine bay harness to plug in. It's the rear harness, and this is the back of the fuse box. So obviously we're restricted with where the fuse box can be mounted by these two wires. So I think what I'm going to do is cut and extend this back into this loom and back up, so we've got a bit more freedom with where the fuse box can be mounted, because this is going to be in the car now, and obviously we're going to be tight for space. It's going to have to be tucked under the dash, out the way where we're not going to be able to get to it. So if we cut these and extend them, it gives a bit of flexibility with where we can mount the fuse box. What I did with the power wire I was talking about before, which I pulled away, you know, the live from the headlight plug, is actually where it pulled away, it was quite corroded and green, and you know, it was never going to be a good contact. So I actually chopped that section of wire out, spliced in a new piece with a, you know, crimp barrel, heat shrinks, and also spliced in our power to our headlight loom as it would have been originally. So that's all safe. The only thing I want to do now on the dashboard loom is we've got this indicator relay, which is terminals hanging off it. That's an easy fix. What I've noticed is some more heat shrinks, and you'll notice, not on that one, but on that one it gets very wide there, so I'm going to guess that is a twisted wire with some heat shrink. So I'm just going to, lastly, I'm going to pull these heat shrinks off, just check these. This twin earth cable comes into a single, and then a connector here. Then I'll just do away with all that, put a fresh cable in with a fresh terminal on it. That looks like a wrap. It's been twisted and whatnot anyway, and I'm going to assume that's the same. So just tidy this bit of cable up, make this neat, and then for the time being that'll do for the dashboard loom. What I'm planning to do is I haven't got the fuse box to hand, but on the front of the fuse box there's about 8 terminals, and there's some wires that push onto the front of the fuse box in the engine bay. So with the fuse box now being inside the car, then wires need to come through the bulkhead. So that's the inner bulkhead terminal for the dashboard loom. In fact, I'll show you here. I've got a Cortina loom. For the Cortina loom, see if I can disconnect that one-handed. Probably not. Give me a second. There we go. So that's your interior. That's your engine bay harness, if you like. So as you can see, that clips into the bulkhead, and then the interior harness pushes in. So what I'm going to do is try and keep it looking a little bit factory. Is repurpose this, and the wires, the extra wires from the engine bay, for instance, I think it's main beam and dip beam that plugs onto the front of the fuse box, they can go onto this harness and into the car this way. I think there's also going to be a couple of other wires maybe, so I'll utilise this plug so it looks a bit more factory, and make this work. That's my plan anyway. There's a bit of a clean up in there, a bit of contact cleaner, but yeah, this should do the job. And obviously this is, you can trim all this, the excess off this, what I don't need, and this will, I'll then splice in the terminal that the connectors that would be in the engine bay to this side, to the front of the fuse box in the car. Makes it look a bit more factory, and I know it's a modified car, but if I can utilise original factory connectors like that, make it look somewhat factory, then surely that's a bonus. But for the time being, I'm going to crack on with this indicator harness and this relay harness and earth, just to make it a bit better. That wire's hanging out there, that being a yellow terminal, it's certainly not supposed to be on a little thin wire like that. So replace these terminals, replace these bits of wire, and that for the time being is the dashboard loom done. I will be adding some extra wires to it, but I want to fit it up into the car so I can work out where everything's going to go, and start drilling the switch panel for our switches for our headlights, wipers, and whatever else is going to be going in there, like a lift pump that's going to be wired in. I think some other bits and pieces, but for the time being I'll just tidy this up and we'll get it in the car. Well, exactly as I predicted. There's our earth, and then another join, and then a terminal. So we'll just do away with this piece of wire, put one piece of wire in with an eye on it, and again, yeah. So let's sort this out. Some new wiring, some new connectors, and let's make it a little more permanent. There you go. Simple job. Done away with some unnecessary joins. Done away with all the twisted wires. Everything's crimped in with the terminals. Some new terminals on the end there, just neaten things up. And a nice thick earth cable instead of that little thin one we had in previously. So that is the dashboard loom done for the time being. I'm going to pop it in the car and start mocking up where I want to put switches, etc. And then I may move on to the engine bay harness. I'm not sure yet. I'm just sort of going with the flow. Ignore all this. This is not part of this loom. This is just wrapped up in it on my bench. There we go. There's some more wires there in the way. There you go. Much better, much neater, and much safer. I'm working on the Mark 1. I am trying to plot out the fuel system in the back. Swirl pot's in, low pressure feed, pump is mounted. I need to get some AN fittings and some lines to feed the swirl pot. The high pressure pump is mounted and fed from the swirl pot. I have just received this morning, and you know what? Hats off to Torx. These guys are fast. I ordered this yesterday afternoon. Yes, I just cut myself trying to adjust the hinges. It hurt. These guys are fast. I ordered this yesterday afternoon. I received it this morning with the gear. So hats off to Torx. I can't knock these guys. I love them. Credit where credit's due. Good eBayers, good service, always helpful. Even when I mess up and order the wrong pipes, they always help me out and put things right. They're a good service. Can't recommend them enough. I wish they had a website though, or a catalogue, because I hate eBay. But yeah, so that is the filter bracket. So the filter's going to be here. I need to make an AN line to link up the high pressure pump to the filter, and then we're going to make an AN line It's going to drop through the floor. I don't know whether I'm going to put a plate over this and punch it through there, I don't know. But it's going to go through the line, feed to the engine, and then it's going to be returned coming back into the car and to the swirl pot. And then this one goes to the return on the tank, which is here. Very complicated. Took me a bit of figuring out. I wanted to do it because he supplied the high pressure pump and the filter, but no swirl pot because the car didn't have one. And he did have a handful of AN lines and fittings and stuff, so I'm trying to do this in a way so we have to buy the bare minimum fittings, etc. So this is why it's plotted the way it is. We already had this line made up, so that works. Just got to make one to link these two up, and then yeah, fingers crossed. If you could order some, again, I'll use Torx. You know, they're probably not the cheapest out there, but they're good. And if there's any problems, they'll rectify it, and it's fast. So I'm going to order up some AN lines now that I'm happy with where everything's going to go. Order some fuel pipe. I think it's dash 8, some dash 8 fittings, and get this fuel system rectified. The reason I'm plotting it out is because I'm doing wiring, and without having this plotted out, I obviously can't finish my wiring. So now that I know where it's all going to go, I've got the fuel pumps mounted, I can now plot out my wiring to the fuel pumps and carry on with the wiring. Something else I did as well, this is how I hurt myself, is adjusting the boot lid. I'm trying to adjust the boot lid because you've probably seen it in the previous video. It's sat about, I don't know, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch higher than the rear quarter at the back. It had all kinds of spaces in there and all sorts. So I've adjusted the hinges. I've still got some tweaking to do. It seems to be hitting. This car's had a bash on the back end. It seems to be hitting on these corners, and it hasn't even got a boot seal on it yet. So something's not right somewhere. It's quite obvious it's had a bash on the back end because all the boot floor's crumpled. It's a bit crumpled here. So yeah, I'm trying to rectify that just so the boot sits a bit better. It's better on the back. It was sat way proud of the scuttle. It's probably, like say, 1/4 inch, maybe even 1/2 inch above the scuttle. So I've managed to rectify that, but you can hear it still hitting. See the mark there, still hitting on here somewhere. So something's going to have to be addressed. I'm not sure what the issue is. I'll have to look into that, but we're getting there. We're making it better. It looks stupid. So right now it's looking better than it did. Anyway, actually, yeah, a bit more of adjustment, see what we can do. I'm not expecting miracles because it's been damaged on the back end, but as long as it looks better than it did, it's worth doing. A little bit of progress on the Mark 1. As you'll have seen earlier in the video, I was doing a dashboard loom. Now something I did need to do was plot out the wiring for the fuel system. So we got a high pressure pump and we got a low pressure lift pump to feed the swirl pot. So don't know why I'm messing with that. Being a turbo car, it needs a swirl pot. The last thing you want with a turbo car is fuel starvation. If you get fuel starvation while under heavy load, heavy boost, you're likely to melt the pistons. So swirl pot will stop that fuel starvation. You can get these fuel tanks with the swirl pot already built into the bottom of them, which will save having to fit a lift pump. You'll just need a high pressure pump and a filter. But sadly this tank was already bought, was already fitted to the car, so we have to make do with what we've got, fit an external swirl pot, hence the second fuel pump. They're all wired in, all taped up, clamped down to the floor. The only thing left to do, battery box, I'm just waiting for that to arrive, it's on order. We've got the main live and earth for the battery, and then 2 earths for the main earth, 1 earth for the fuel pump for the high pressure, and the other earth for the low pressure. So I'll just put an eyelet on these, and these can go straight to the battery. Saves running to the body and, you know, the chance of a bad earth. Just try and get it, make it look a bit neater. What I am going to have to do is all these holes in the floor, I'm not sure what they've all been for. You know, some of them are not even the right shape. What we'll have to do is try and get a die grinder, open these up to the circular, and get some rubber grommets in there. This one is, not sure what shape that is. I possibly I might have to put some sort of plate riveted into the nice neat plate, and then this line could possibly go through a bulkhead fitting through there. I'm undecided yet, but yeah, there's certainly a lot of holes in the boot floor that need to be. There's one under the pump there again. But this will probably be used for the return back from the tank, so that can come up and straight up to the swirl pot, feed the swirl pot. So yeah, it's looking better. You know, it's never going to win any shows, but it's neat, safe. That's the main thing, safe. So yeah, I would have liked to have got a black bracket for this one, so they're all matching, but this car is being done to a budget, so possibly the owner can change that down the line. I hate the red and blue fittings, but again, we're just trying to work with as much as we've already got with the car, so I'm not going to start blowing, because these fittings aren't cheap. Some of them are, some of them aren't, but you're probably looking at about £15, something like that, just for that fitting. I know some of them, they go up to like, I was looking last night at fittings, and some of them are like £50 for a fitting, single fitting. So yeah, we've got to save money where we can. So this way, I mean, it'll look okay. It'll be functional, it'll be safe. That's all we want. So what I need to do now, where these lives run through the car, I'm going to clip them to the power lead and run them all the way down the tunnel to the front. The low pressure one will just go to the switch panel for the switch for the lift pump, and the high pressure one will be linked to the ECU, which already has its own fuel pump relay built in. So I'm yet to plumb them into the dashboard loom. There's still some wiring left to do on the dashboard loom before I'm happy with it, and then I can tape everything up and finish it off. So I run a little test last night, powered everything up, and we've got all the back end working, all the back lights, indicators, brake lights, side lights all working. I've checked both the pumps are working. It still looks a bit of a mess in here, but I can't finalise any of this and tape it up until I have spliced in the front harness, plugged it in and wired in the Cosworth engine. So for the time being, this is going to have to stay a little bit messy, a little bit unfinished, until I've worked on the engine bay harness. Something I did have to do was I initially put a three-way toggle switch in for the headlights, the side lights, so it's going to be off, side, on. The problem being that the rear lights only worked off dip beam. They wouldn't work on side lights, so they wouldn't work. So sadly, I've had to reinstate the original Mark 1 switch, and I'll probably do the same with the wiper switch as well. I hate putting original switches into a new switch panel, but needs must to make it work. There's probably a way around it, but I can't spend too much time on it. So in the switch panel, it's going to have the headlights, the wipers. I need to put a push button for the electric washer pump. I think there's something else as well, and then the top row will be gauges. Anyway, that's for another time. For the time being, I am working on the original Mark 1 engine bay harness. As you can see, it plugs into the bulkhead. They should plug into the front of the fuse box in the engine bay, but these are going to have to now go into the car somewhere because the fuse box is in the car. That's a minor job, it's only a case of extending them. This is what I'm dealing with now. My concern is, as with I found the charging light for the alternator. I'm not sure why it comes out here. It goes back in here, or where it's even wired to. But we'll reinstate that to the alternator, get that working properly, get the battery light working. My concern is, again, see lots of shrink wraps. I'm going to say they are twisted wires with heat shrink over it. So all these have to be fixed. Yeah, there's all sorts going on in here. So I'm going to remove all this old tape, unearth it all, wire it up properly, get it back in the car, and then I can start splicing in there's a engine harness for the Cosworth engine. There's also a separate harness for the twin electric fans. So first of all, get this one sorted, then start splicing in the Cosworth harness. It looks like a mess, I'll be honest with you. Right now it is. This is actually a brand new harness, ignore this. This has nothing to do with it. This is actually a brand new engine harness. so there's no problems with that. I know it works fine. It's just a case of splicing it into the car neatly. So yeah, wish me luck, because I'm going to need it. I think there's going to be lots of crimping, new terminals, new wires in and stuff, lots of repairs, and this is just what I can see so far. There's still a lot to unearth under this. And we're still going, stripping off tape and heat shrink. I think I've had every combination of tape on this. There's the fabric tester tape, black insulation, grey insulation, black duct tape, and then the various pieces of heat shrink. And what I've found is just like the dashboard loom, whatever there's heat shrink, there's wires twisted together. Just pulled this one off now. See if I can pull one off, just to prove I'm not joking around. Anyway, let's pick one. So this one, could I do one-handed? No, it's a bit tight, that one. But yeah, you get the gist. Lots of oh god, I just pulled that one apart that easy off camera. But yeah, basically anywhere where there's heat shrink, it's just underneath is twisted wires, no solder joint, no crimps, no nothing. So I'm going to separate all of them. Thankfully I know where pretty much most of the wires go, so separating them is not going to cause any issues, and I can start splicing everything in properly. I've just put some temporary ties on the loom just to hold it together. This is all original. I'm still trying to work out where the alternator wire goes, the blue and white. It was down here somewhere on the headlight looms, which is incorrect. It needs to go with the alternator harness. So we'll splice that, reinstate it. Is that it? Oh, I think actually that's it. Is that it? No. Well, anyway, we'll dig that out, reinstate it, get it working properly. There's stuff like, where did I see the temperature wire, which won't be used. Yeah, the original temperature wire over here won't be used. There will be some wires like oil pressure, that won't be used because we're running an oil pressure gauge. There will be a lot of the original features like the coil wire and stuff won't be used. I'll just trim them back and tape them in the loom. There's no point removing them completely, just making excess work. But yeah, it's time to get through it. I just need to get the last get these connectors off so I can get this oh, there's also overbraiding as well, and rake hem, like each sleeve. We need to get all this off, expose all the wiring, and start repairing it and putting things where they need to be, making it safe. There we go. All the various tapes, insulation, heat shrink, you name it, banding, braided, removed. That was a challenge. It does seem a little extreme to remove it all, but there's a method to me madness, and it's things like this. So these are your power leads for the back of the alternator. So you got one joint here which may be soldered, may not. And then you fold them down, you've got more joins here. So just in that piece of cable there's two joins, which is, yeah, obviously we're going to have to put one joint in there, but surely that lead can go all the way to the terminal, cut out an extra, you know, extra connection in there. Again, headlight wiring, one joint there, and then another joint there. Some of you even got more joints further on, so in that length of cable there we've got 3 joins, possibly more, you know. Again, joins, there's just unnecessary joins. You could just replace the cable and put one join and do away with half of them, half of these extra splices, if you like. So yeah, as extreme as it may be, all these need rectifying, putting right, wires need running where they should be rather than all over the place. So yeah, we're about as bare as we need to be. We can now start unpicking it and making it right. Just plugged it in the car, because the bulkhead plug's in the car at the minute. plugged it in, plugged it into the fuse box and powered it up and trialed all the functions, and it turns out amazingly it works. Now I'm not sure how efficient all these little connections will be by the time it's got some decent amps going through it, main beam, lights, etc. But for the time being, I've powered it all up and it's working. I've labelled everything up. I had an idea anyway of what was what, but better just to confirm it. And thankfully I've confirmed everything that I need is in and working. So now it's a case of plug it in, engine bay side, lay out where it's meant to go, cut, extend, trim, you know, all that sort of stuff, so everything reaches where it's meant to go. Fit some grommets for the headlight and indicator looms, and obviously replace all these multiple joins everywhere with fresh wire, fresh connectors, and make it safe. And then that can be taped up. In fact, this has to be cut and extended and has to go onto another bulkhead fitting like this, so we can run it into the car. And then obviously this plug will be inside the car on the opposite side of the bulkhead fitting, bulkhead plug, so this can plug into the front of the fuse box, which is in the car. All sounds complicated, but actually it's really simple. It looks quite daunting, but once you start breaking it down bit by bit, it's actually quite simple. It's a Mark 1 Escort after all, there's not a great deal to it. I'm sorry this video is a bit boring, you know, I'm not saying the others are exciting, but watching me do wiring, it's tedious, but it's part of the job, it has to be done. It's in fact one of the biggest jobs on this car, correcting all the wiring, so needs must. Next, I need to lay out the wiring loom in the engine bay, just so I know where everything needs to go. I know the wiring loom was not fitted correctly, so it should come out the bulkhead, down the inner wing down there, quite low down near the chassis. You'll see there's a hole there near that sensor. That's where the headlight wiring goes through the inner wing and up to the passenger left hand headlamp. The loom then carries on under the radiator, across the radiator cross member, and then the rest of the loom, well, this headlight loom goes out this side. There's another bung, you just about see it behind that pipe, and then some bits go off to the engine. Obviously there's the coil and stuff, and you know, but all that's redundant now. The main thing is the headlights and the horn. Now the horn I'll probably put on the inner wing on the passenger side with the headlights, headlight loom, indicator loom, so on that side, but there is going to be some wires that go off to the alternator, i.e. the big power lead and the blue and white wire for the battery light. The problem we had is because we're limited with space, the owner had run the wiring loom. This side was fine, it went through the inner wing to the headlight. It then just dropped down under the anti-roll bar, was hanging down underneath the front of the car. It went under the chassis leg on this side and then up to the headlight instead of above the chassis leg through the inner wing. Obviously I can't do that, it has to be fitted properly. In order to fit it properly, I need to get this rad and intercooler set up out the way, which is going to be lovely. It's nice and tight in there, as you can see, it's really crammed in there. But before I remove that, I noticed a coolant leak on the engine. It's just sort of dripping off the front pulley, the back of the front pulley around that area. It could be the water pump or it could be the thermostat housing. The car's currently, I've topped the coolant up. What I'm going to do is get the snap-on camera in there with the little tiny end on it, see where I can find out where the coolant leak's coming from, because the last thing we want to do is strip all this front end down, sort the wiring loom, put it all back together again, then find the oil leak, and then have to strip it all out again to correct the oil leak, whether it's water pump or thermostat housing. So first things first, I'm going to get the snap-on camera fired up, see if I can find out where the leak is coming from. There's even a core plug in there, it could be that, hopefully not. Try and trace this water leak, then strip all the intercooler and rad system out of it, cure the water leak, and sort the wiring loom, and then all the intercooler stuff can go back in for good. Well, that's the plan at least. Hopefully I can find it with this camera. And the answer to that is I can't find a leak. There is definitely a drip of some sort. Now, whether it's residual water from when the car might have got wet or I don't know. but I can't. I've had the camera down there, looking down the sides of the water pump, looking at all the joints on the thermostat housing, coolant hoses, etc. I can't find any drips whatsoever. Even I filled the car up with coolant this morning, and there's no drips. It's bone dry. So I'm living in hope that it could be just, you know, water from when I filled it up, or it got wet, or I don't know. At this point, without it leaking, I can't pinpoint it. Hopefully when the rad and intercooler's out, I might be able to get a better look and spot some witness marks. I don't know what's up with me today, I can't talk. Perhaps see some witness marks where water's been running down maybe. I don't know. But either way, I can't let it hold me up any longer. I've got to get this intercooler and rad system out the way so I can access the wiring loom, or where the wiring loom needs to go, so continue with my job. Right then, so the first job, I'm going to get this throttle cable out of the way. The cable wasn't even on the throttle body, it was just bolted up to the plenum, simply because I don't want to be trying to pull the intercooler up, catching that, potentially breaking it. It's not even connected to the pedal, so I'll just pull it out of the bulkhead, get it out of the way. It's only got 2 fixings on the bulkhead, but they're nut and bolts, so I'm not going to be able to film it because I need both hands. Next I'll get the ammo valve bracket out of the way, 2 intercooler pipes, and then it is just 2 coolant hoses and these fixings into the front panel, which I'll swap for something a bit nicer. I'm not sure what's holding it in the bottom. Have to work that out. But yeah, I'm gonna crack on. I'm not filming it, like I say. These are all nut and bolt. I need 2 hands, so you just have to trust me when I tell you I did it. Managed to get the throttle cable out of the way. It was wedged under the front panel here. That's how ammo valves out of the way. Both intercooler pipes and dump valve out of the way. As you can see, one of the cooling fans is out of the way. Now, if anyone's watching this video thinking I'm taking the pee and stripping this car and making extra work and running the bill up and all that, here's why I'm stripping things. Not only I do need to access under here, but it's things like this that I'm finding. I've not touched this one. I've just removed that one, and every nut was finger tight. And these are your cooling fans to cool your engine. So without removing this part, without touching that, I would never have known they was finger tight and potentially drop off going down the road. So yeah, it's a pain. I've got to remove stuff, but in doing so, I'm finding all these little extra bits and pieces that could have been catastrophic down the road. So yeah, as you can see, finger tight, and I'm pretty sure the 2 on the bottom will be the same, because all the ones on this one. Never mind, at least we find it now instead of down the road when it causes a much bigger catastrophe. So there's all the coolant hoses off, what I need off the rad. What was very strange is there is actually coolant in this engine, yet none has come out. Out the radiator, out the thermostat housing, nothing. Explain that one. I'm now questioning if this engine's been piped up correct, and I think I'm going to have to do a bit of research on a 4x4 Cosworth and how it's piped up, because that does not seem right to me. Something's amiss. It should have come out. I can understand it not coming out one side of the thermostat housing. Maybe the thermostat's shut, it's not passing water yet. Certainly out the other. There should be coolant in the radiator. Yeah, it's bone dry, it hasn't. I pushed the car outside to drop the coolant out of it, it's just water in it. And not a drop, absolutely bone dry. And thankfully I run this car for probably a minute, you know, so not enough to do any damage. But something's amiss somewhere, so I need to do some research to find out the correct. I know a two-wheel drive no Pinto, how the water circulates on that. This got a slightly different water pump outlet on the water pump, with it being it's an Escort Cosworth engine, big turbo Escort Cosworth engine. Blue rocker cover would point to big turbo Escort Cosworth engine. So yeah, I need to do a bit of digging. That's puzzled me, that one. But anyway, enough of that. The intercooler now, in theory, I've pulled the top mounts out of it. I can't find any mounts on the bottom. I would assume it wouldn't just be wedged in there, there'd be something fixing it. I can see fixtures holding the radiator to the intercooler, but I can't see anything down low holding the intercooler to the car. There's nothing in there. Nothing in there. Right then, I might need to jack it up because I can't get it on the ramp at the minute and investigate further. There we have it, intercooler and rad all out. As you can see now, got some, you can actually see where the wiring loom should fit. Well, in fact, the intercooler has two posts on the bottom, which actually sit in here, and then it wedges under the front panel and two fixings in the top. So pretty straightforward actually. Now you can access, that's the loom grommet for the headlight loom for this side, the hole for this side. The horn would normally sit on the radiator support here, but that's been chopped out for the Cosworth intercooler and rad. So we'll put the horn under this inner wing and run it through here with the indicator and headlight loom. As you can see, these two, so there's two holes next to each other. Same there, there'll be more up on the inner wing, some in the front panel, more over here. That's actually where the engine bay harness actually clips to the panel, so it has plastic clips with pins. That fixes the wiring loom to the inner wing, to the cross member, radiator panel, or cross member, whatever you want to call it. That's the inner wing here, and then it goes out. You'll see some more over there. So what I'm going to do now is clip the wiring loom into the bulkhead, run it where it needs to be, and then I can get all my lens for the headlights, for the indicator, indicators, horn, you know, all that sort of thing, alternator wiring. I can plot it all out, and then I can fix everything. Fix all the repairs, extend wires, shorten wires, do whatever I need to do, get it fitting properly, and then we move on to the engine harness, which is a completely separate harness. I'm gonna have to punch another hole in the bulkhead. Up there, I've ordered a Mark II Escort wiring loom grommet. I think it's the only one the right size to fit it. So I'm gonna have to open a hole up in the bulkhead. And that wiring loom for the engine harness, for the ECU, fuel injection, all that sort of stuff will go through a separate hole to the original engine bay harness, and then that'll just terminate inside the car, connect up to the dashboard loom, and all being well, it should all work. There will be some extra wires. There's electric fan harness that needs to go through. There's the wasted spark harness that needs to go through. Aftermarket temperature sensor for a gauge, apparently that'll be going through with it. So there's a lot to finalise electrics wise. There's a lot of extras on this car compared to what it would have left the factory with, but we're making some progress now. I can now grab that loom and start laying it out in the engine bay and plotting out where things are going to go, and yeah, some progress. Still haven't found the coolant leak. Even with this access now, you can see got a lot more access. It's bone dry, but I'm also concerned that it's bone dry because so is the thermostat housing, the radiator. So I don't know on that. Anyway, I'm sure we'll figure that out. As I was saying about the wiring loom clips, these are actually the clips I was talking about. So these, just pinch your harness, push them through the holes on the inner wing, and it holds the harness against the inner wing. I'm not going to use these for the time being because once you fit them, chances are they're going to start removing them. So for the time being, I'll just use a cable tie on each of the holes to plot out the wiring loom. A little bit cheaper than ruining a load of these things. And you can see they're like a barbed end on them, if it'll focus. There we go. Focus. No. Anyway, yeah, I've got a load of these, so we'll fit the wiring loom properly with the proper clips when it's done. Right then, back to it with the Mark I Escort engine bay harness. So I did put it in the car, plotted out, cable tied to the inner wing, plotted out where it wanted it to be, and measured up, got our lengths where things need to be. Put a new alternator cable in, and cable tied it where it needs to be, so it's just a case of hooking up the power, the charge wire, and the battery light, which effectively switches on the alternator. And we need to hook them up into these. That's alternator, and then these two, for whatever reason, I don't know why Ford didn't. They split it into 2 cables and then run it to the alternator. It doesn't need to be to 2 cables. But anyway, as ever, pull the heat shrink off, and this is what I was greeted with. So I'm fully expecting every single, well, it's irrelevant on this piece is being removed anyway. It's been replaced with one bigger single cable. So what I'll do is get some crimps and crimp this into this, so it's a nice clean connection. Again, anywhere where there's heat shrink, I'm just assuming it's just twisted wires. Go through it, pull all the heat shrinks off. There's not much more up here, but there is a lot on the headlight wiring, so they're going to be corrected. A lot of this is too long now anyway, because the wiring looms run in the correct place. A lot of this is now redundant. Anyway, we'll get to that. Yeah, first job, do over this. There we go. That's the sort of connection that was on the alternator. It's never really going to charge. You're obviously going to lose amps with that kind of connection, so that's why we're in here doing this. Do away with all that and put some proper connections in it, make it safe, make it work properly, make it nice and neat. I know this car isn't a show car, but if I'm doing some work on it, I want it to make it neat and the best it can be for the budget. These are just earth wires which will run up to the slam panel. I'm not overly concerned about. I will be sorting these out because I'll guarantee they're just twisted wires. Now there's a fine point, so 2 twisted wires with heat shrink there, and then another 2 there, instead of just putting one long piece of cable in. So it's things like that I'll be rectifying. I know this is a boring video, unless you're into wiring. This really is a boring video, but it is a part of the job and I've got to do it. So I'm just going to crack on. I won't be filming loads. I'll just show you the finished product and it tested, and show you everything working, if I've done my job correctly. Right then, a little bit of progress. All the dodgy connections removed, all the twisted wire connections removed. Everything is now spliced in properly, heat shrinked, good to go. The only thing we've got left to do is add the terminals on the end. Once everything's in the car, I can then chop things down, add the terminals, it's finished. I have also removed these 2 plugs from the engine harness. These would have plugged in the front of the fuse box, which would have been on the bulkhead. The fuse box is now inside the car, so these need to plug into the front of the fuse box in the car, which presents a problem. So what I've had to do is use a second, that's the original bulkhead plug. I've used a second bulkhead plug, cut these wires out, splice this bulkhead plug into them. That'll go through a second hole in the bulkhead, so it'll look factory, as factory as can be. I'll then take the other side of that plug and splice it into them, just like that, and it will plug into the front of the fuse box in the car. Job done. So next I'm going to get me grey loom tape, tape all this up, put it in the car, and then I can finish connecting everything up with the headlights, the horn, all the earths, etc. while it's in the car. What a pain that was. Well, that looks better. So I ran out of tape, didn't I? I had one headlight loom, left the tape up and ran out. I thought I had more tape than I had. I actually thought I had another couple of rolls. It turns out it's not. So order some more rolls. I'm going to need some for the interior loom anyway, for the dashboard loom when that's finished off. That's as far as I can go with that for the time being. I can, however, get it in the engine bay because this pokes through the inner wing, so I can finish that bit off when it's on the car. That's not a problem. I'm yet to terminate it anyway on the headlight, so that's fine. That can now go in the engine bay and be clipped up permanently. And then I need to work on splicing in the interior harness on that extra plug that I fitted. So yeah, progress looks much neater. It'll actually function now, and it's safe. There you have it. Much neater than the previous loom. Wired into the alternator as it should, through the inner wing as it should. I put the earth down here low because normally that earth would come up to here. But I have an intercooling radiator, just going to complicate things, so Surf down there, got some star washers on it, so it's got a good contact with the body. Clipped into the body, clipped into the front panel. The only thing left to do is put a terminal on for the starter motor when I get the car up on the ramp, and terminate it at the headlights. Oh, also I need to punch another hole in the bulkhead for the second bulkhead plug to go through, and then wire it into the other side as I explained earlier. Yeah, all being well, and that should solve all the electrical issues, power everything up, everything working. I will terminate them headlights in the morning and punch a hole in the bulkhead, and then we can start fit the headlights, power everything up, make sure everything's working, and we can tick that job off. I can then start refitting the engine harness and work out where that's going through the bulkhead. I'm still waiting for a wiring loom grommet. I ordered it, should be here any day now. I can then put another hole in the bulkhead for the wiring loom for the Cosworth engine and the electric fan to go into the cab, and then I can finish up the dashboard loom, terminate everything, finalise everything, tape it up, and tick the wiring off the list, reassemble all the intercooler, radiator, headlights, grille, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So, everything working, thankfully. In fact, no, the battery light isn't working. I'm not sure if that's just the poor connection, something to do with the clocks. And also, I noticed when I just watched that video back from the back end, one of the indicators is illuminating on the passenger side. That's because the bulb holder is a little bit grubby, let's say. So once to clean up, give it a tap and it starts working, but that's not a permanent fix, so I need to address that. But generally, all the lights and electrics now are working. So that's a success. Now that the wiring's all finished up down there and through the inner wings, I went ahead off camera and got the intercooler and radiator back in, coolant hoses back on. I got the electric fans bolted back up again, but this time replaced the little plastic nuts that I had on with washers and M6 nylocks. So they're all nice and sturdy, still to be wired in. I'm yet to fit the intercooler hoses. This one can go on because it's not going to be in the way, but I'm thinking of leaving this one out of the way just because I've got to access wiring down here for the electric fan, and all the wiring for the engine, need to plug it in, and also the starter motor. So for the time being, this intercooler is staying out. Sadly, the every parcel didn't turn up, so I haven't got my grommet for the bulkhead for the engine harness to go through. No surprise there, because every is terrible. So yeah, I'm a little bit stuck at the minute. Well, I'm not. I could potentially open the hole up in the bulkhead. I need to be sure of the dimensions of the grommet before it turns up, before I start punching a whopping big hole in the bulkhead. So there's plenty of other stuff to get on with. I can get this intercooler in, I can get the ammo valve mounted back on the slam panel again. We can actually start assembling this engine bay now, knowing that the majority of it is staying put. So there's things like the header tank's missing a fixing, that needs securing. I think this needed, yeah, not too bad. Just checking things over and making sure things are secured properly. Like I say, I can get the ammo valve back in and start plugging the engine in, ready for that grommet. So we can punch the hole through the bulkhead. The electric fan wiring can go through that grommet too. Fingers crossed it turns up before we close, but sadly at 4:35, I don't think it's going to. So one of my bugbears is when you use an M5 bolt, but then use an M6 washer. So it always when they tighten it up, it's always offset. And it's a stupid little detail, but I just find it irritating, to say the least. So, with the correct M5 washers, we can fit this up. And like I say, it is a small detail, but it's just one of them details that is so easy to fix. I'll tell you what, it's not easy to fix one-handed. Yeah. So much better. Back for the night shift. Pushing on with this Mark 1 now. As you've seen previously, all lights are working, intercooler and stuff back in. I have had to remove the top radiator hose because I'm now putting in, well, first of all, victory. The Mark II wiring loom grommet finally showed up, hence why there's a hole in the bulkhead cut out for this to go through. And yes, it's a bit extreme, but we have got a lot of wiring to go through there. So the meter sting was Mark II wiring loom grommet, and to be honest with you, this shell's been quite heavily modified. There's holes everywhere, so I don't think one more is gonna really affect it. So now we've got to put the engine harness, the what else? The radiator harness, and I think there's 2 wires for the temperature sensor as well, and also the 2 wires for the wasted spark. That's got to go through there too. So all this has to go through this. So that's my next problem. Dealing with that was the 2 wires for the wasted spark. I think they're actually, in fact, they're already in the engine bay. Because I plugged the wasted spark harness into the ignition amplifiers, twin ignition amplifiers with wasted spark, then you've got your coil pack plug, and then you've got these 2 pins that go to ECU. So they've got to go through that bulkhead plug too, along with this loom for the twin fans. So there'll have to be 2 relays in the cab for these. And yeah, so that's what we've got to go on with now. I'm going to try and get all this loom together, get it through that bulkhead, then we can start terminating it in the cab, sorry. Start mounting things, start getting some things finished. Been pushing on, and we've got the wires through. We've got the new Cosworth engine harness. We've got the wires for the wasted spark run. Oh, cut myself, pretty tight down there. The wiring for the wasted spark run through, that's through there. You also notice this lead here, which comes from the temperature sensor on the side of the head. That's for the temperature gauge. It's running an aftermarket gauge, so it needs a 2-pin wire from here, so that's run through there too. And also the electric fan wiring, which is all plugged into the 2 fans. It's clipping up out the way, keep it away from the pulley. Plugged into the sensor, plugged into the 2 fans. It's also clipped along the loom, runs into the car. So now I can get these 2 plugs back into the bulkhead for the harness which I made earlier this week. I want to tidy up. Everything's plugged in apart from the map sensor, which is around here somewhere. So I've got to mount the map sensor on the inner wing along with the coil pack. Should be a plug somewhere for the coil pack. If I'm not mistaken, yes, hanging down here. So we've got a coil pack and map sensor to go up here. We've also got the 2 left over down here are the crank sensor and the knock sensor. Now I'm pretty sure the crank is the white one, but the crank sensor needs swapping anyway, so I'm not going to bother plugging them 2 in yet. That'll be easier when I get the car up on the lift. I've got to do the engine cross member and mounts. I've got to do the exhaust. I've got to do all kinds underneath, so I won't plug them in for the time being. They're not needed. I'm not planning on running the car just yet, but I do know they need plugging in. So the next job will be get the 2 grey loom plugs for the original lights, etc. Put back into the bulkhead, and jump in the car and start terminating all the wiring I've just put through. Because now the footwell looks like this. A little messy, but it's all going where I need it to, which is the main thing. So now I can start well, I can finish off the interior loom, pull the dashboard loom out once the tape arrives. I'm still waiting, hopefully it'll be here tomorrow. Once I finish terminating everything, I can pull the dashboard loom out, tape it up, tape the last bits of the headlight loom on the driver's side, because I've run out of tape for that. That's why I've not bothered with the grill or anything, because I know that light needs to come back out. Finish taping that loom up. And that will be pretty much the wiring done. Then it's mostly mechanical.